With less than 24 hours before the planned nationwide protest by some civil rights groups, the Inspector General of Police, Egbetokun, says security agencies will, under no circumstances, allow a repeat of the 2020 NSAS protests where lives and properties were lost and destroyed. The IGP said this at a meeting with heads of paramilitary agencies and leaders of the Take It Back movement organizing the August 1 protest. Arise correspondent Ferdinand Duroha has more.
August 1 is the due day for the planned nationwide protest by civil rights groups, and security agencies are leaving nothing to chance. While the groups are determined to show their displeasure about the economic hardship in the country through civil protests, the security agencies warn that such protests could be hijacked by hoodlums and cause mayhem. Present at this meeting on how to adequately protect protesters, other citizens and secure government facilities are the heads of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, the Nigeria Customs Service, Department of State Services, the Nigeria Immigration Service, the Nigeria Correctional Services, and the Federal Road Safety Corps.
The right to protest is right to peaceful protest. We don't want a repeat of the NSAS protests in Nigeria. We can't afford it at this critical time. We are yet to recover from those losses. Innocent lives were lost, where police stations were burnt down, armed gangs took over. Armed gangs started terrorizing the citizens of those communities. We don't want a repeat of that.
The IGP also held a virtual meeting with senior lawyers in the country like Femi Falana, son, Ebun Olu Adegboruwa, son, and other key members of the Take It Back movement. During the meeting, the IGP acknowledged the group's right to express their concerns through peaceful protest and urged them to cooperate with the police to ensure the safety of protesters. Meanwhile, the police have arrested one Suleiman Yakubu, a 34-year-old resident of Jos North, for allegedly inciting violence against critical public infrastructure, law enforcement agencies, and private individuals in connection with the planned nationwide protest. Suleiman, on his TikTok account, had allegedly urged the public to attack petrol stations, security operatives, and destroy critical state and private infrastructure.
This bad government, we must end down.
Also, as part of measures to forestall any acts of criminality during the planned protest, the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps says 30,000 officers and men will be deployed to safeguard critical national assets and infrastructure. The federal government has also warned protesters to stay clear of the country's custodial centers, designating them as red zones. The act is meant to prevent the previous acts when several custodial centers were broken into and inmates released during past protests. Ferdinand Duroha, Arise News.
Joining us on the morning show are three public analysts: Ewa Okpo, a lawyer; Yemi Adamolekun, the Executive Director of Enough is Enough Nigeria; and Jesu Tega Onokpasa, who will be joining us very shortly, a lawyer and chieftain of the ruling All Progressives Congress. You're most welcome to the morning show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. Well, Okpayemi, let me start with you, and then I have a question for Ewa. I will phrase the question so that I can start. First, end bad governance. EIE, Enough is Enough, which is the group that you lead, has already published 10 demands, saying these are the 10 demands. I would like you to tell us, take us through the 10 demands of this protest, because that would seem to be the justification for it. All those statements about living wage, cost of living, electoral reform, judicial reform, NSAS, release all NSAS people, if you could just take us through that. And then for you, Ewa Okpo, the big issue is about the right to protest. The police, they've said, yes, the right to protest is constitutional. We respect it. That matter was settled long ago in IGP versus AMPP and others. That it's a constitutional right. But the police are also saying that for them to be able to discharge their functions under Section 14(2)B to provide security, there is also a law the Police Establishment Act, Section 83 thereof, that says, look, if you want to protest, at least cooperate with the police, tell the police, this is where we will meet, this is the route that we will take, so that the police will also be part of it and they can provide security. But Ebunolu Adegboru ICS says, no, they can only disclose convergence points. They cannot disclose the movement. So just for you to tell us again, about the legal issues involved in all of that. Benjamin, let's start with you.
But just so as he thinks about your question, just to reframe, what Mr. Adegboru just said...
You want to ask the question?
No, to provide factual content. What he said was that, what the IGP asked, because I was on the call yesterday, and what the IGP asked was that there be no procession and no rally. So that you can't say that people should meet at one point and then walk to another. Yeah. That everybody should be confined in a space. Yeah. So that's very different than saying that
he said the IGP does not want street procession.
Yeah, exactly.
So Adegboru says we can only tell you convergence points.
Exactly.
When we converge, we will move to the streets.
Yeah, and then walk.
That's what he said.
Walk from point A to point B.
We're saying the same thing.
Okay, just to be clear.
Yeah.
To your question about demands, so they are not EIE demands. Also to be clear, we're just amplifying demands. When the protest was announced about 3 weeks ago, there were a bunch of polls on social media asking people what is important to you. And that's what fed into the 10 demands that they've now crafted, that EIE reposted on its social media handle. I'll try to remember, obviously, we didn't create them, so I don't remember all of them, but I'll try to remember some of the highlights. One is establish a living wage. And the context that I think Nigerians need to remember, when we participated in Occupy Nigeria in 2012, minimum wage was 18,000 naira. 18,000 naira was approximately 128 naira. Minimum wage, dollars, thank you, was approximately $128. Minimum wage is now 70,000 naira, which is approximately $46. And just to provide context in terms of that as a living wage, one is security, that there is quite a bit of opacity around resources, both financial and human. So we can't say we're in a state of insecurity and our security personnel are guarding private individuals. Then there's one about farms and farmers, protecting farms and farmers, resettling IDPs so that there's a plan. The cost of government is a big thing. And this particular administration has said it wants to implement the Oronsonye report. And to provide context, when the Oronsonye report was released in 2012, there were 500-odd departments and agencies. At this point in time, we have over 1,500. And this administration is also talking about setting up a new ministry of livestock, is it? Or whatever? Livestock, exactly. So the context is you can't be saying we don't have money and be spending more money and setting up more apparatus of government. There was a concern around the National Assembly. This particular budget, they included over 7,000 constituency projects worth over 2 trillion naira. So there's a demand that that be removed. And in case people don't know, National Assembly members get things like hardship allowance, and they're asking that that be cancelled as well. What else is there? Hunger, fixed cost of living. So those are kind of highlights.
Electoral reform, human capital development.
Yes. And I had another one that I really liked, constitutional reform. And that one was just one demand, amend the Constitution to include a provision for a referendum. So it makes it easier for us to do simple things like, do Nigerians want a new constitution? Yes or no? And we have an answer.
NSAS is there. The government should support NSAS.
Like how?
Well, I saw something about hashtag NSAS.
I was when you said support, I was like, exactly. I was like how?
Okay.
So the demand was there are people still in prison, that all NSAS protesters still in prison should be released. There was an ECOWAS judgment against the federal government that they should obey it. I think 29 or 30 states, if I'm not mistaken, had a judicial panel after NSAS. They've technically produced reports. Only Lagos, this report is public, and we're asking that the reports be made public and be implemented. Okay. And compensation paid, of course.
Okay. Okpo, let's come to you.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. Permit me to say also, before I proceed, that those of you over there have been more like our inspiration for the work you do for this nation. Thank you very much. You talked about Section 83 of the Police Act 2020. 2022. Now, I think that the main crux of that provision of the Constitution, of the Act, when you read the general provision in Section 4, paragraph subsection A to I, and then you come down to 83 and read again, that community reading, particularly where they're talking about identifying places where such movements will take place, the law does not make it a duty on protesters to inform the police where they are going to protest. There is no law like that in Nigeria. However, the law says that where those people who want to protest informs the police. So now, the law does not place a duty on me if I want to protest to inform the police. But it says that where I have done so, it is the duty of the police to mobilize security for my protection. And so what we are saying here is that you must understand that that same section begins by mandating the police that they should protect the right, the freedom of citizens. As we speak, we have three sets of citizens as regard what is happening today. We have those who are intending to participate in the protest, who are supporting the protest. We have those who are protesting against the protest. And then we have those who are not participating in either of these protests. It now brings us to the fact that the police has a duty to protect these three categories of citizens. So the Constitution and the law had foreseen such complexities. That is why it did not put any form of limitations, restrictions, duties on anybody who wants to protest. It is your inalienable right to protest. It does not even tell you that you must inform the police. Because if it does so, like the Bible said that there was a Pharaoh that did not know Joseph, there could be an Inspector General of Police who will come and deny that he was not given that kind of information. However, the law says if you decide to inform the police, if you decide to inform the authorities, they are duty bound to provide protection for you. And so if people want to protest, the duty of the Nigerian police force is to protect protesters.
The number of policemen we have, they are below the UN quota, about just a little over 300,000 of them. How can they be effective in protecting locations that they do not know? The ones that should be protecting us, most of them are carrying bags for madams. Another percentage is attached to big boys who can rent a police. So the ones that are left, would it not be easier for them if you tell them, okay, this location, so that they will know where to go? The police is talking about helping them to be effective.
I want to, without trying to indict the police, I want to think that the Nigerian police force is being economical with the truth. On internet, on social media, these guys who want to protest have listed, I think, 10 states that they want to protest. Now, that section 83 of the Police Act mandates the commissioners of those states to take action. So if the police are telling us that they don't have enough manpower to protect Nigerians because they've sent some of them to political, to big men, it's not our problem. In fact, there is no nation in the world where you have enough policemen to police any nation. It's not possible. In fact, I think the last ratio was 1 police officer to 44 citizens. That's the United Nations standard. And so even if we say that the Nigerian police force are not up to 500,000 in Nigeria, we are not saying that each policeman should protect each protester. We are saying, these persons say they want to protest. You know where they want to protest. All right. The IGP is saying he does not want procession. I think these people don't even want procession themselves.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Let me come back into the studio. So I'm glad you talk about the fact that you were involved in the 2012 Occupy Nigeria protest. And now, tomorrow's protest as well, EIE is giving directions, information, also placing demands. Then and now, what's the difference? Because at that time, there didn't seem to be this agitation around, oh, there's going to be, they've gathered intelligence that it will be hijacked. At that time, it wasn't like that. What has changed? I asked this question yesterday, and I want to pose that to you since you were actively involved. And then the other aspect of things would be that, are protests effective? To what extent do they achieve the desired results? I see that because I see on you Bring Back Our Girls office, you've been involved in a number of advocacy. Does it work in Nigeria? Is that the way forward, or are there better ways to achieve results?
All right, so let's start between 2012 and now. 2012 protests, let's also not forget, were started by citizens. Fuel price was going to be increased, and citizens took to the streets. Labour joined later, so it wasn't led by Labour. But I think what government has found between now and then is the ability to use security as a scare tactic. So then citizens were protesting and it was fine. And I think also the fact that they also had pretty well-known faces. So Tony Bakare, Wole Soyinka, Joe Dumakin, as people who were at the forefront of the protest. And secondly, opposition understood the power of protest. I mean, the president has talked about his role in military and whatnot and protesting. They were opposition at the time, and they saw the opportunity. So they were also part of it and also part of the narrative. Now, fast forward 12 years, government has realized that using security, even in relating with the media, that's why government will say media houses shouldn't carry stories about Boko Haram or whatever, not to give them platform for security reasons. So security has now become a thing of why things shouldn't happen. And our ongoing comment is, if you say you have intelligence that people want to hijack and sabotage a protest, might the intelligence be intelligent to give you who these people are? Now, so why are you so focused on the people who want to protest and not as focused on the people who have said they want to cause mayhem? As you referenced, on the call with the IG of police yesterday, we mentioned the video circulating of people in Lagos Island, in Lagos, telling people that if you come out, there will be consequences. Yeah. The IGP ignored that statement. He said nothing to it. He didn't respond about what they were doing. But he did tell us they have arrested the young man that you just showed, that they found one person. But on social media, there are people talking about violence. Yeah. There are people actually acting it out. So when the state refuses to act, what does that say? Mr. Falana on the call was very clear. The government is also, even the IGP, is very quick to talk about the violent NSAS protest. NSAS, again, was not violent. It is politicians that we saw, government agencies that turned it violent. In Alausa, it was a Lagos State bus that brought thugs. There were pictures of the thugs they were taking that was circulated on social media. Till today, nothing has happened. As Mr. Falana said on the call, they are called thugs for political parties, but they're then called hoodlums during protest. So when you know the people that you mobilize and push out at different times for different reasons, why is that not the focus? Why is it peaceful protesters that you're making your headache? I mean, to Dr. Abati's point, yes, we're very under-policed. We know that, but that's not my problem. The fact that you choose to deploy them to carry bags or rent a police, in your words, how should that now be my problem? But if it is a problem that you also want us to discuss as citizens who want the best for the country, then you come to us with that tone. You don't come to us and say you can't protest. The IG has gone from you cannot protest, okay, if you protest, send us the route. On the call as well, Mr. Falana suggested something. Since we are under-policed and you are mobilizing people to protest in support of the government, perhaps this has been announced from August 1 to 10. Tell them to start on August 11. Let us all be clear. So after the ones that have demands have finished their protest, all of you that says Tinubu is the best thing since sliced bread, start your own on August 11. You can take it to December.
Have a timetable.
Exactly.
All right, but let's go to the question around effectiveness of protest.
Effectiveness of protest. I think overall, if protests are a tool, but people tend to think of them as a magic wand.
Silver bullet.
As a silver bullet. A protest is an expression of discontent at a point in time. And after that point in time, it then must be engaged, because ultimately the point is getting people to engage the process of governance. It's not just about elections, it's holding people who have been elected accountable. And there's this famous quote that by Frederick Douglass about power not conceding until it's forced to. So if people in power, and I will end with that, this protest was announced 3 weeks ago, by the way. I'm not sure that there's anything that I've seen this government do in addressing the concerns around cost of living. What it spent the most of its time doing is engaging people to stop people from protesting and organizing protesters to protest against the protest.
Okay. So real quickly, I'll come to you, Okpo, and I want you to answer this. And I'm happy, Yemi, you talked about that point. I muted. The hypocrisy of the state now. You have told them that you are giving them free intelligence, as we see on social media. It's not only the people that threaten people in the market. also the traditionalists with their white attire.
Yes, exactly.
All over some parts of Lagos yesterday.
Yeah.
And the question Dr. Bati, you are looking at me. The police did not ask them for their routes.
No.
They too, they protested. The police did not ask them for their convergence points. They protested against the traditionalists. In fact, they carry that big black egungun and they were there saying, "Am I protest not loud? Am I protest not loud?" That's free intelligence. And they were threatening fire and brimstone. And we also saw how some people were giving money, no protest to the protest. Dialogue. They started their own the day before.
Yes. Yes.
The police has not asked them for their routes.
No.
My question, or picked up anybody, is the young man that was talking on TikTok that they picked up. During the election, they saw somebody threatening fire and brimstone and made it happen. Really did that violence in Lagos.
And rewarded him with a government appointment, by the way.
In fact, they even further said that it was a joke. You can see the police CP defending him.
Yeah.
The question is, this hypocrisy. Ekwo, I want to come to you first, then Yemi, I'll come back to you. This hypocrisy, you can see them, I want Bami, ati Yemi. Police cannot ask you for their route, or
to tell them they're inciting violence.
Or they're inciting violence. No, police will not see these ones now.
No.
So, Okpo, please, can you react to this?
Now, that was that legal maxim again. Res ipsa loquitur. The fact speaks for itself. And we have seen, every Nigerian has seen the hand, the hand of the police, the card of the federal government. And I want them to know that however this circumstance plays out, tells a whole lot about the capacity, the integrity of the federal government, of President Tinubu's leadership. And know that also, that Nigeria is a creation of protest. Do we want to start to talk about how the likes of Obafemi Awolowo, Zix, and the rest of them protested against British rule? Do we want to talk about late Fumilayo Ransom Kuti? Do we want to talk about women riot that was led by Helen Eswene? So, protest has always been part of negotiations in Nigeria. I want to say that there's a solution to this. If the police says that we have not done enough to give them information regarding where this protest will be taking place, the routes, can the police also, acting proactively, provide toll-free numbers to Nigerians? Where you see any suspicious activity, call this toll-free number. The protection of Nigerian citizens is not just the duty of Nigerian police. Other security agencies, civil defense, what do you call them? DSS, road safety, they have joint task force. Provide toll-free numbers that every Nigerian citizen, whether for, against, indifferent about the protest, where they see anything suspicious, they call those numbers. We should be talking about the way forward. We should be talking about solutions, not to be giving allegations, accusations, presumptions that actually expose our ulterior motives about the circumstances before this nation today. What is wrong with protest? The president himself has been a leader of protest.
Okay.
So if there's anybody in Nigeria who should understand and know how to handle protest, it is President Tinubu himself.
Thank you so much, Okpo. Yemi, you've seen Bami. They've protested their protest yesterday. The police didn't ask them any question about route. They also threatened a lot of people. Then the one that happened on Lagos Island. In fact, you can even say, was that a police officer at their back there following?
Possibly. The Lagos Island one had a mopo, the commentary had a mopo stationed nearby.
Okay, they were with them. Okay, they gave them protection. Okay.
Which is what it should be.
Which is what it should be. Please, can you comment on this? The question is, now that you've seen all of this, and you've told the IG, the hypocrisy.
Oh yeah, it's clear. And I think, the meeting was made public, so anybody who wants to watch it can go on YouTube. So it's documented that the IG was told and he said nothing about it. And then Lagos also, and just this point about the focus on violence, Lagos just passed a judgment yesterday restricting the protest in Lagos to 2 parks, Peace Park in K2 and the Ganifayome Park in Ojota. So basically, if you live in Badagry or you live in Ekpe and you want to protest, you need to find your way to the mainland, Ojota, so that you can protest. And I'm saying that sets up a mark for conflict because it's then citizens are now saying, well, this doesn't make any sense. The Constitution guarantees me freedom of assembly. So in Badagry, if 20 of us gather and we want to go to our local government chairman's office, for example, as part of the protest, can they say that Lagos State has said we must only come to Ojota and then arrest us? And so you're setting this, you are increasing the tension of the climb already, and people will defy it, and then we'll now have challenges.
Okay, where is the conversation about cost effect in all of this? Yeah, you've talked about the demands. Ordinarily, every Nigerian will say, yes, yes, we want this, we want this. You know, they sound like what all of us want. But cost, some people are saying, like the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, they are saying that, look, this will cost Nigeria over 400 billion in terms of cost if you shut down the country for 10 days. And that all of us will be affected at the end of the day anyway. We won't be able to move around. We won't be able to do anything. Maybe the airlines, you know, will also be out of it. And then organized labor is saying, we are not part of it. They made that clear, NLC, TUC. So can any protest really be successful without organized labor backing it?
Occupy Nigeria showed that very clearly.
But
NSAS showed that very clearly. So, no, I'm answering both your questions. So Occupy Nigeria and NSAS and One Voice and Bring Back Our Girls, I could go on about the number of protests that have been successful without organized labor. So they're fine. They don't have to join. And there are multiple groups that have, everybody is issuing a statement per day. We are not part, we are not part. It's okay. We're saying people have a right to protest. They also have a right not to, and that's fine. But their cost, yes, there is a cost. There's a cost we're paying now for bad governance. So it's for us to leverage it. Do we continue to pay this cost ad infinitum because there is a government that refuses to listen to citizens? Or do we force the government, in a manner of speaking, to pay attention so we stop paying a high price for living in Nigeria?
Well, I understand Jesu Tega Onokpasa is now in our Abuja studio. Well, Jesu Tega Onokpasa, well, I've been seeing some of your comments. I know you are against the protest. Why?
I'm not against the protest. I'm against the protest being hijacked by hoodlums and thugs and unsavory elements. And as I've previously articulated, let's even start this way. Our citizens are going through serious challenges. There is hunger in the land. You know, food is expensive, prices just fluctuate, they keep rising, transport costs. So our citizens are passing through serious challenges. There's no anybody who pretends that that's not the case. It's just being highly mischievous. And then the citizens too have a right to protest. That is the law. It's a fundamental human right. However, where you get to a point where failed politicians, people who lost elections, have basically hijacked the process, and Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar are basically founding the embers of division and discord as usual. And then you have hoodlums and miscreants already. Imagine this fellow who apparently stays in England, Wong Badamosi. I mean, asking people to identify the houses of APC supporters, Bola Tinubu supporters, their family members, and so on. I mean, it is no longer a protest, Ruben. That is by the time you go to that extent, you are now verging on terrorism. So it is not as if anyone is against protest. People, of course, I'm a lawyer. I would defend the right of people to protest against me. I would defend diehard supporter of Bola Tinubu that I am. I would defend the right of people to protest against their president. It's not their constitutional right. The protest, it has clearly been hijacked, unfortunately. And people, the organizers of the protest actually meant well. I'm not imposing them by any means. Unfortunately, there are these unsavory characters, questionable characters, failed politicians who have basically hijacked it. And it is not the way they are envisaging it will pan out, that it will pan out. We are not going to call what is obviously building up to pure mayhem a protest anymore. It's not a protest, it's just it's brigandage and chaos.
Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Otherwise, you've mentioned Badamasi. Maybe you also know some of the hijackers. But the concern is, if we know who the hijackers are, why, as a state, not, acted, to prevent what you say will probably happen. But thank you very much for joining us.